platform with StreamYard.
Yeah, it's acting a little funny today. So I guess you've angered Allison. You've angered the bots.
Sabotaging us.
It's a consequence.
Yes, I think you angered the bots. Well, before we get into our beverages, Allison, give us a little because we talk about persuasion and a lot of that kind of stuff, and so this is a little off of our topic, but tell people why they might want to stick around and listen to what you're going to be sharing with us today.
Sure, definitely. I think that people should stick around because they can find out how I wrote a book in a week with no AI and how they can do it too. It's very straightforward.
Pretty good skill to have in case the grid goes down or something like that. I guess as long as you got a typewriter, I guess. Could you write it by hand in a week?
Probably not. That might be hard. I still use
computer
technology. Fast. Yeah. Still typing. But
all right. Well, you have
some of those authors like to pin it out by hand. That's crazy.
Yeah, I have some friends who do that just because, like, especially friends who are in the computer business or on computers all day. Like, the last thing they want to do when they get home is, from their day job is stare at a screen. So they write by longhand.
Yeah.
And I'm like, more power to them. Whatever gets the words out, great.
Yeah, that's a big commitment there. I tried to start doing that with some of the book. I wrote the intro out by hand. I was like, but then it's so hard to go back and edit and like slide stuff around if you want to. Especially I'm doing a nonfiction book, so there's a lot of stuff that I want to insert in. So it gets tough if you've done it by hand.
Yeah.
Or Allison, you told us before the show that you were not a beer person, but you do have a local distillery that you like.
Definitely. I love Strathcona Spirits Distillery. I have the bottle here. And it's also on the screen. Yeah, they produce, they're the smallest distillery in North America, I believe. So they produce very limited runs of whiskey, of rye. I think they might even have a gin, but their stuff is fantastic. Got the Dreamland Straight Whiskey, which is, very basic as you can. I'll read a little bit from the back. Off our still into the most outstanding casks coopered on this continent. Virgin American white oak quarter casks from Tennessee and Kentucky with a mid-char. So yeah.
All right.
Produces great whiskey.
Sounds good. Oh, Jonathan disappeared on us. And we're having some tech issues today. I really do think you've angered the bots, Allison. Luckily, most of our people listen on audio, so the auto recording will be cleaned up a little bit. So
that's good. Maybe he just ran out to get one of these bottles because
maybe it sounded that good. He just popped up there. Let's see if he's back. I see him in the green room, so give him just a second.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I'm not particularly a beer drinker, but I do love cider. Cider is great.
Yeah. There are some good ciders out there now. Are you? What about mead? Do you like mead?
Oh, I love mead. I actually had a friend who used to make mead. He was a medievalist. And so he walked me through the whole process of how you do it, and very fascinating. And he made it and he infused like orange peel into it. It was delicious.
Yeah, that sounds good. It's hard to find mead because not many people make it, but yeah, the few I've had are pretty good.
The funny thing is it's very stable, which is why it's such an old alcoholic beverage, because you could do almost nothing to mess it up and it would turn out great. Now we have, like oak barrels and stuff. We do very complicated things with alcohol, but it's a very basic type of alcohol that really can't go bad. Honey is like a naturally bacteria resistant. So yeah.
Yeah, it's because do you have to use yeast for mead or not? Do you know? I don't know.
I don't know. I just remember he boiled it a lot. The honey, added water, added the orange peel. I think he did use yeast. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not actually a brewer myself, or I don't make it myself. But Yeah, it was very straightforward. I think it was just like a couple ingredients, and then
Yeah.
he cast it up, and we drank it, I think, 9 months later.
Wow. It's not bad. I don't know where Jonathan went, so I will go ahead and do my beverage, and then he can do his when he pops back on. So I have a Sazerac rye. It is a rye from popularized in, got the picture here, popularized for New Orleans. So they used to ship rye down the river, and they called it Sazerac rye. So Jonathan just said he'll be back in a second. So
Nice.
so that's what I have. You had to log out of StreamYard and back in. Mine's glitching a little bit too. Is yours on your end?
So far, so good. But again, maybe I'm just bringing the anger of the bot gods. They're like, oh man, this
Yeah.
person. So
Take us
it
down.
happens.
Yes. We've had some. This is our 399th episode, so we've had some crazy stuff happen over that many episodes. But
oh yeah, definitely.
It looks like everything's still recording on my end, so that's good. We'll be able to patch it all together.
That's
Thanks
good.
for good
I was listening
entertainment.
to your podcast earlier this week, and just like the topic of AI has come up quite a bit.
Yeah.
On oh, here he comes.
Yeah.
We're back.
Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show, Jonathan. Glad you could make it.
Technology sucks, I tell you today.
I tell you, I know. So we've done our 2 drinks, so you can bring on your drink, and your son can patch all this together.
So I'm having something called it's called a true story. This is a new one for me. You ever heard of this one?
I've not,
bourbon,
but I see the theme. I do see this thing. Although she's a fiction writer, but I guess you do some other stuff. You've done some other genres.
Yeah, she's a ghostwriter. Aged 5 to 6 years in charred American white oak and finished in white muscatel cask. True story bourbon delivers distinctive balance of rich oak, sweet fruit, and bold spice. 90 proof, 45% ABV. I've never had this one, so we'll see. This will be a first.
Cool, kind of a cool bottle. Very different from your typical whiskey bottle, for sure.
Yeah, that caught my attention.
Which I guess that's why that would stand out on the shelf for sure. It's good marketing from that standpoint. Everything
created
else is
by Angel's like Envy. Have you ever had Angel's Envy?
Yes.
Yeah, I've not. So is that pretty good?
Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah, I do like the bottle though. That would definitely stand out.
Yeah. So. All right.
Well, let's do a quick cheers to a good show, and that the bots will leave us alone for a little while.
Cheers.
Whew, a little stronger than beer.
Yeah, you do not want a pint of this.
No, do not. So, all right. So we usually give a rating 1 to 5 pints. You can use decimal points, whatever, Allison. So what do you give? What do you give your whiskey there on a scale of 1 to 5?
I like this one a lot. I would say 4.2, maybe.
Okay. All right.
Do you drink yours? Can you hold it up? Do you drink yours straight, neat?
Oh yeah, neat, definitely.
Neat? Oh, look at that. Got all 3 of us going neat.
Actually, I'm the lone. I've got a few melted or a couple of melted cubes in mine. Okay. So it's just so hot. I got to put some ice in there.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to give mine. So Jonathan, you missed it. I've got a Sazerac rye.
Ooh.
Straight rye whiskey. So mine's got a lot of smoke on it. So and I like it a little smoother. Yeah. So I'm going to give this like a 3.8. It's still really good. It's just a little smoky for my taste.
3.8.
Yeah.
Allison, can you, I didn't catch what you had. What is this one?
Oh, the one I have is Dreamland Straight Whiskey. It's from Strathcona Distillery, which is local to me. It's the smallest distillery in North America. Yeah, mine is very smooth, so I really like it.
That's the dangerous ones.
Exactly. You could drink a lot of this. Maybe
you could sip it all night and then stand up and realize you should have done that. So
exactly.
All right, Jonathan, what do you give the true story?
It's very smooth. I like it. I would give this a 4.2. 4.2.
All right.
It's solid. Good. Yeah.
There we go. 4.2s, 2 4.2s, and a 3.8. Sounds.
I might bump it up a little bit because of the bottle. I give it a little. Might give it a 4 or 5.
There you go. Sounds good to me. So, all right. Well, let's jump into the show. So, Alison, tell us a little bit about your background first.
Yeah.
How you became a writer? Have you always been a writer? And then what made you come up with this crazy idea of author versus AI? So kind of give us the backstory and then that.
Yeah, I've always been a writer. It's a thing I can remember doing my whole life. I think the first story, according to family lore, was I wrote my first story when I was 4. And it was a horror story about the monster in the closet. Because I was a weird kid back then too. I didn't get started. I didn't get serious about publication until after I had kids, because I was a stay-at-home mom, and after I had my second daughter, I was like, you know what? I love my kids. I do very, very much, but I wanted to use my brain again. And so I started writing because I needed some adult time. I needed something that was not, I again, love my kids. I love spending time with them, reading to them. But yeah, it's a full-time job and you need something for yourself too. So then I started getting serious about publications, started writing more than just short stories. I've had a couple publications before, but I had to never buckle down. So I buckled down and decided, okay, I'm gonna start writing books, and I did.
And how long ago was that you started really?
Oh geez, maybe about 10 years ago, something like that. Yeah. And it just sort of took off. So I wrote books, I wrote short stories, I wrote poetry, and I would send it out. I stopped counting at 200. I have over 200 publications in different magazines and journals. Just kept on going with it. And then I started doing ghostwriting through my editing. So I was an editor for a number of different writers. And at one point, an author who I had been editing said, "Wow, these are really great edits. These are fantastic. I would love to see my book like this. Can you do it for me?" I was like, you know what? I've never done it. I've never done ghostwriting. I'll give it a try. And I did, and I enjoyed it. And part of what allowed me to be a ghostwriter was the fact that I was a fast writer. And so that sort of ties into AI. Because, AI sprang up. It became sort of public use in 2022.
It's been about 2.5 years. I think it was November of 22 is when chat really came on the scene. So about 2.5 years, I guess now. 2.5, I think.
Something like that. I mean, it's been super fast, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it's taken over all our worlds. Isn't everyone's job? Everyone's using it. And at the time that I came up with this project, I was talking to a friend, and this is during the writer's strike down in LA. Something all writers were talking about, AI getting into the creative sphere. And he said, "You know what? You're a super fast writer. You write a book a week anyways for clients. Why not do it for yourself?" And it was sort of like a light bulb moment, like, oh, hey, this might be fun to try. And I started looking it up, and no one had ever done something like this project. And
Imagine
I was like,
that.
I know. So I was like, you know what? Okay, I will give it a try. Yeah. If no one else has done it, I'll be the first one to do it. And so I did.
I've got a lot of questions.
Yeah. Who's one of your favorite? I'm curious. Who's one of your favorite authors? Going way back.
Oh man, geez, that's like asking which one is my favorite child.
Who's your?
It's hard to answer. Yeah,
you can answer that too. That's fine.
A huge no. My kids might actually watch this. A huge influence on me from way back when is the author Tanith Lee. She's a British author. She wrote a lot of fantasy, science fiction. She was the first woman to win the August Derleth Award, which is currently the British Fantasy Award. So she was like way ahead of her time. But Ray Bradbury is awesome. Also, he was a huge influence also.
Okay.
Cool.
So I'm curious, let's kind of break this down a little bit first. So first of all, you decided you were just, did you just not like AI, or it was just the guy made the suggestion, you were like, that sounds cool, so I'll do it? Or were you trying to prove a point? Like, what was, seems like there has to be a little bit more behind it if you're going to call it author versus AI.
Yeah, there was a lot behind it. So again, it was something that was creeping into the creative sphere. And a lot of authors I was talking to, and this is sort of near the middle to the end of 2023, were worried, especially new authors. As an editor, I work with a lot of new authors, and they're saying, well, why would I ever write a book if AI can just do it for me? Why would I even try? And so that was part of my sort of rallying cry. Like, yes, everyone has a story to tell. Storytelling is a human endeavor. So while AI might help with marketing books, for example, it might help with writing ad copy, it might help with writing blog posts. When it comes to the storytelling, the creative aspect of that, I feel like it's still nowhere close to being able to take over for people, because storytelling is a part of what makes us human, that connection. So I wanted to do this and show that, yes, one author and hopefully more authors can take on AI and still have their stories to tell. AI is a tool like anything else that we use. It's a program. It can be useful. It cannot necessarily take over for us.
Yeah. You use it for research and for other things, but just not the writing, right?
Yeah. Because a lot of us write, even people who don't have a publication deal or don't have an award or don't have a bestseller, a lot of us write because we love to write.
Yeah.
Especially on the fiction side of things. We would tell stories even if there was no one there to read them. So yeah, it can't take over for that love. I mean, I don't think AI will ever wake up in the morning, not that it wakes up, and say, I want to write a book today. Like it does it because we tell it to do it, right?
Right.
So
yeah, for now. So until it becomes aware. Rick Rubin.
Well, then I think it'll be like taking over the world rather than writing a book. I don't think that's going to be a high priority for it.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm reminded of Rick Rubin, who he talks a lot about, the creative arts and all that kind of stuff. He talks about like that's what art is. Like you just make it because you want to make it, not because somebody's going to read it, not because it's going to sell well, but because you can't not make it. And it sounds like that's kind of who you are. Like you've been writing since 4, you've been writing these stories. Like you can't not write.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you write what you're familiar with. Like we were saying earlier, I think that's the problem with AI is it gathers a lot of information, but authors typically they write from a personal, they're good at explaining a lot of details in a story because these are things that everyday people can relate to, but these are things that probably they have experience in going through. I was mentioning my buddy Clay. He's writing from an experience as an attorney, failing the bar exam like the first couple of times, which he did, right? So, I mean, that's something that he can relate to. So they say write something that you're familiar with. And I just think that AI doesn't have the experience that we have. It doesn't share those experiences that we have.
The nuance.
Yeah.
Which is what I think makes a good story. It makes the story feel real.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. I've got a couple questions, Allison, on these books. It was 34, right? 34 weeks.
34, yeah.
Okay. First of all, like when you say book, like how long are these books? Are they all about the same length? Like how long is a typical book for you? And what genres were you typically writing in?
I'll start out with genre. So it was every genre. This was part of my dream when I wanted to be an author way back when I was 4. I was like, I love all stories. I like science fiction. I love literary. I love poetry, So to make a dream come true of mine, which was to write in pretty much every genre I could think of. So every genre I could think of, I added to my stories. Pretty much the book length is, I went by the standard length for publishers for awards, which is 40,000 words and above, which, as you probably know, is not a long book. So most of the first drafts, these were all first drafts, they weren't edited along the way, were 40 to 50,000 words, some a little bit longer, but yeah.
Yeah, that's a legit book, big enough to put a title on the spine, all that stuff. So yeah, that's pretty good. So what is your, like, did you have these ideas lined up? Did you just think of them week by week? Like, how did that process work? And did writing generate more ideas, or did you have to like really work to come up with ideas?
Well, all of it was preparation, actually. So I don't know if you've heard of the whole pantser versus plotter discussion among writers.
No.
So pantsers are those who write by the seat of their pants, sort of what you were describing. So like basically you sit down to write, you don't know where your story is going, but it will go somewhere because you're at the computer writing. Plotters, as the name might suggest, are the ones who do all the planning ahead of time. When I started out, I was more of a pantser because I was doing it for fun. When I started doing it professionally, I had to become a plotter. So basically the 6 months leading up to my project was preparation. So because I was planning on doing this for a year. I actually failed in my original goal, which was to do 52 books for a full year. So I got tired and stopped at 34 books. Coincidentally around the holidays, when I had a lot of stuff to do for my family and kids and all that kind of stuff. So I did stop around that. But I did all the preparation ahead of time, chapter by chapter outlines. I did character sketches. I even pulled images off the internet of what I imagined my characters to be. So I had all of that research done ahead of time. I did a lot of research, especially for the historical books. So I had each one ready to go. So at the start of each week, all I had to do was sit down, look at my files, and start writing.
Okay. So how long does it take to do that part? Like for any given book, like the research and the character and the plot line? And do you have like a template or a formula that you use that you kind of go to regardless of genre? Or is it different for every genre? I've only ever really worked in nonfiction or sales copy, so I'm not up on fiction. So I'm curious how that works.
I mean, I do have a very simple template, especially for the character sketches, like what I want to know before I start the book. But I don't really have a template. Most of these ideas, so I'd start out small. I'd start out with like a log line, basically who's the main protagonist, who's the main antagonist, and what is the conflict. So I'd start out with the very basics. Actually, back that up. I would start out with the genre, and then I would do that log line. And then I would expand it from there. So I'd expand that to maybe a paragraph or two, sort of like what you'd find on the back of a book, what the stakes were. And then I would go from there and just expand that to a chapter by chapter. So it was each step. I'd say the total preparation would take anywhere from 2 days to a week.
Okay. Still pretty amazing. So when you get these ideas, do they just like I get ideas for nonfiction books, and I've actually got a couple fiction books on my board right now that I've started playing with.
Nice.
Do you get the idea like it just drops in from the ether? Like, oh, I want to write a whatever genre book, and then it kind of snowballs from there? Does it come fully formed almost? Like, how does that work for you?
Sometimes it comes fully formed. Before this project, a lot of the books that I wrote for myself, I would have the idea sort of fully formed and know what I wanted to write. For this, because I was building them from the ground up and I had so much quantity I had to do, I did a lot of research. I did a lot of reading. When I was specifically saying, okay, I want apocalyptic fiction. I would go look at other types of ideas in apocalyptic fiction that people had done and decide what I wanted to do that was different from that. so I wanted to try something unique. I also pulled a lot of my own cultural heritage into it. I'm half Japanese, so I love to throw in Japanese myth or things from that culture when I can into my stories. I feel very comfortable adding that to some of my stories. So.
Yeah, the book cover behind you, that's kind of got that twist to it, right? The
Yes.
fire. Yeah.
Yep.
That
was.
Tell us a little bit about that since we're talking about it. Like how that,
Sure.
like kind of walk us through like how that happens, that book in particular.
Oh, okay. Well, that book I started out. Do you guys know NaNoWriMo?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so
November.
National Novel Writing Month in November, where you're supposed to write 50,000 words, which ended this year. It's no longer happening. They shut down. So the concept for that idea actually started at NaNoWriMo. I was like, okay, I need 50,000 words. Let's see what I can come up with. But I had been reading historical articles, and they had recently made a discovery that there was some archaeological evidence that I think it was the 1400s, Chinese ships had come over to the coast of South America and had stayed there for long enough to leave some archaeological evidence of their presence. So that sort of sparked the idea. What if they had come over, before Europeans? What if they had established permanent trading ties with the indigenous populations? And that's pretty much my story. So a lot of my ideas, both for Author versus AI and for my last book published, is just from seeing where a story can take you.
Yeah, I know Stephen King talks about how if in his book on writing, he says if you're not a reader, you don't have the tools to be a writer.
Yep.
Like you have to read to be able to write well, to get your ideas, to get familiar with the flow of words and everything else. Like you have to be a good reader to be a good writer. You agree with that?
I do, to a certain extent, because the hardest thing, especially working with authors as an editor, the hardest thing to teach is pacing. And that's something that comes from reading a lot. So seeing where a story moves too fast and you have to flesh it out, or moves too slowly and you have to make cuts, that's sort of almost an instinctual storytelling ability. So yeah, if you're not reading, if you're not experiencing that from other perspectives, other storytellers, then it's hard to learn that, I would say.
Yeah, we see that in copywriting as well. Like pacing is probably the hardest thing to teach, and that where it reads nice and fast, and you don't have to go back and reread stuff and all that. It's very, very important. Let's talk about. So you're talking about 1 week to write a book, 40,000 words. Are you doing time or words per day? You almost have to do words per day, right? If you're trying to hit a number, do you do words per day or time per day?
Yeah, it depended. I know my word pace, so I normally write between 1,000 to 2,000 words an hour. So I could do it by time, and I'd know I produce a certain amount, but yeah, usually I'd be hitting the word count. I'd be like, okay, I want to write 6,000 words today or 8,000 words today. And especially near the end of the week, I'd have to sort of pace it out. If I had, if my kid was sick on Monday and Tuesday and I didn't get a lot of work done, then I'd have more to do on the back end.
You make it up. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, life happens, right?
Sure. So you're spending 3 to 4 hours a day writing, typically?
At least. And sometimes, again, it's not always in one big chunk, so I would interrupt that. So it might be closer to 6, 7 hours, something like that. Okay. But yeah, generally.
Okay. I mean, because I've heard different people say just like, I know with copy anyway, it's hard to write a lot more than 3 hours, but it's a different type of writing. I don't think it flows quite as smoothly as fiction might.
Yeah, and if you get caught up in the story,
intentional. Yeah.
Yeah, if you get caught up in the story, you can, well, at least I can. Sometimes I'll be there and I'll look at the time and I'll be like, wow, 4 hours has passed. I should probably get up and walk around and make sure my legs still work or something.
Yeah. How many words a minute do you type? Do you know?
I don't. Again, when I'm really cooking, I can do up to 2,000 words an hour. So,
Wow.
but
That's great.
yeah,
Wow.
my average speed is about 15, maybe 1,500 an hour.
Do you listen to anything while is it complete silence while you're writing, or do you listen to anything?
Yeah, I'm a complete silence person.
Okay.
I even have, I even have earplugs that I wear
Yeah.
sometimes, like if, the neighbor is mowing the lawn or something, and I have
Mhm.
to, I need to concentrate. I will
Yeah.
shut out everything if I can.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. I could see that though with stories. Like I could see how that might really be difficult. I know I write with like there's a playlist on Spotify called Brain Food. It's
Mhm.
kind of electronic music, no vocals or anything like that. That's supposed to help with like get you in the right zone, all that stuff. And it seems to work well. I use that with noise canceling headphones. Plus, the headphones for me are a signal for other people in the house to like, if the headphones are on and my hands are on the keyboard, you're not allowed to
Yeah.
talk.
Yeah.
So it's a good, they have to wait until I recognize them or whatever. So, like the kids are all gone now, so it doesn't matter much. But, man, what question do you have, Jonathan? I've been doing all the talking.
Yeah. So what do you, I mean, you see so many people putting out books today. I mean, throwing up stuff on Amazon. And I think that there's probably like, I'm sure you can spot it right away. I mean, some books that I read, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, you can almost identify pretty quickly if it's written by AI. And I'm just curious. I mean, I think there's probably going to eventually just be a pushback of people that are just kind of, there's so many books that are saturated. Do you know, I mean, does Amazon starting to filter out a lot of the garbage that's being put out, that's being published? Do you know?
I don't think they are, because it makes them money.
Yeah.
So they don't care if it's garbage or if it's an award-winning novel. The more books, the more money. So I don't think they're necessarily going to put the guardrails that you might want on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it reminds me of Sturgeon's Law, if you guys know that. So Sturgeon was an author, and this is folklore. I don't know if it actually happened, but apparently he was at a party and someone came up to him. He was a science fiction author, and the woman asked him what he did, and he's like, "Oh, I'm a science fiction author." And this was many years ago. And she was like, "Oh, well, science fiction is crap, like why are you with that, right?" As some people might think. And he turned to her and said, "Madam, 90% of everything is crap." And that's Sturgeon's Law. Right?
It's true.
Yeah.
It's
So
true.
essentially, there's always been a ton of crap out there.
Mm-hmm.
So like think of pulp fiction, pulp novels, where it
Mm-hmm.
was, it's printed on very cheap paper. But it was just prolific. You could find them everywhere. They were cheap. So it's not a new phenomenon. It's just maybe more accessible nowadays to us, to everyone.
And one reader's trash is another reader's treasure, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
like
Exactly.
some people love James Patterson novels, other people think they're trash fiction, So it's like, but he's doing all right for himself. So
Absolutely.
And all his junior writers. So
yeah. And the number one seller, the number one genre that sells is romance, actually. So that is big business. And a lot of people would think that is part of the 90%.
Yeah. And I think even those I think with Kindle, those have gone up even more because people who didn't used to want to be seen reading that kind of stuff. What do you see on Kindle versus regular sales? Do you see with the different genres, do you see a difference? Like there's certain genres that people read on Kindle versus paperback because they don't want to be seen with it or anything like that? Or
I mean, I think nowadays people are more open about what they read. Like, erotica used to be, you'd read it on, under the covers or something. And now people are out and proud, and that's great.
yeah.
Read what you'd like to read. At least you're reading. I don't care.
Yeah.
So, I think the numbers of sales, I think literary stuff is not super popular anymore. So who knows if there's ever going to be the next great American novel,
Mm-hmm.
right? But a lot of genres are thriving that used to be not so popular. Science fiction. Look at the number of Marvel movies that have been made, for example.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
and counting.
and counting. And more.
They're trying to keep bringing them out. So
Yeah.
that's a good. I think that's happening with everything though. Like the genres are splitting, and you're getting more and more nuanced, and there's less. I've heard this talked about with like TV shows and cultural moments. Like, if 70s and 80s there was 3 channels for TV, and if there was a hit TV show, everybody was watching it.
Right.
Like, and now that doesn't happen anymore. Even the most popular shows get like a 10th of the viewership of what MASH did in the 70s. Because there's nothing else to watch.
There's some that do break out of that, like Squid Game, for example, I think broke out of that mold. So there are some that everyone knows these days, but it's a lot fewer. So it makes culture more fragmented, I feel.
Exactly.
So we don't have the same basis of comparison.
And I think there's positives to that, and there's obviously there's some negatives to that too. But I do think it keeps fractioning out to find more and more niche audiences. Like my son's into all kinds of just random. He wouldn't say random. He would hate me for saying that, but different types of metal, like the subgenres of subgenres. He goes to a concert and there's like 50 people there because that's the only 50 people on earth that know the band. So, but they're out there playing, and so
you got to follow it.
Yeah,
small following, but
so.
Which brings up a good question. Do you write? I mean, I'm sure that you write for what you want to write, but do you also? I know a lot of authors talk about doing research on the audience. I mean, there's ways to do research on Amazon to see what people are searching for, what genres people are searching for. Do you try to, I know you write what you're interested in, but once you do that, are you looking to, what is your marketing from a marketing standpoint? How are you looking to get your book kind of in the right category, positioned in the right way on Amazon so that people are finding it? And are you doing anything else to kind of market that book once you put it out?
I do a lot of marketing. I love in-person marketing too. So not just marketing. I love going on podcasts.
For sure.
Which is helpful. But I also do sort of under the table marketing, I would say. So for example, I do a lot of writing that is writing related. So I do a lot of writing about the process of writing, and I do YouTube videos about the process of writing. So like how to write the hook, how to prop up that saggy middle of your novel. So I find those are great to really help, I guess, also sell my books, because people come to me as the expert in what I am doing because I have so many books under my belt. I've won awards. There are some of my videos about the different processes of writing, and they're very short because no one has a long attention span these days. So they need to be like a couple minutes, definitely under 10 minutes. But I find that very helpful. And one beautiful thing about how accessible everything is these days is that you can get your message out there. There are so many platforms. I am on TikTok. I am not super active, but I am on TikTok. I am on, Blue Sky, Instagram, and each one tailors to a different audience. So for example, if I have a YA book out there, I would definitely go to TikTok to talk about it, because that's for a younger audience. Or if, I'm looking for maybe, and sorry if this is a stereotype, if I'm looking for an older audience, I might go to Facebook and talk about, different things that are going on there. So like each different marketing platform is useful for different things. And especially since I write in all genres and I write really fast, it's easy to target my marketing based on what I'm putting out there.
Yeah.
So how does your, if we get like just personal on the numbers, like, you don't have to reveal like actual numbers, but does most of your revenue come from, like, do you get any advances at this point since you're prolific do publishers do that? Are you self-published and you just go off royalties? Like how do you make a living as a writer? I know you do some editing and ghostwriting as well.
Yeah, actually, most of my income comes from the editing and ghostwriting.
Okay.
So, my actual books, I have some books that are self-published. I have some that with traditional publishers, but again, the majority is through editing services. I also run a publishing company where we publish anthologies, and we also publish a magazine. So pretty much the way that I do things is sort of like a finger in each pie. I do a lot of different, I wear a lot of different hats.
I was going to say, do you guys in Canada have more time in the day than we do down here?
Oh yeah,
like
especially in the summer, we have like 20 hours of sunlight.
Exactly. I was going to say, yeah, it's like, 10 o'clock at night, you're still seeing the sun. So
I guess your kids
later than that.
Your kids are what, teenagers now, probably?
Pretty close. 2 of them are teenagers. My last one, lagging behind, she's almost 10.
Okay.
Wow.
So you got a little bit more. They can take care of themselves a little bit while mom's writing and that kind of stuff.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I have my own thing where not headphones, but my office is separate from my house. It's sort of a converted building shed that was converted to an office. So
cool.
they know if I'm out in my office, that means don't bother me.
That's right.
Until I come inside. Yep. So yeah.
It better be a life or death emergency. Right?
That's
exactly.
Right.
Are you bleeding? Then no.
Are you bleeding very badly? Like
exactly.
Yeah.
Blood alone is not enough. That's
parameters
around.
There's no 911. You can dial three numbers.
Yeah, there's several of you. One of you can do it. So I was talking earlier, Allison. We talked about before the show even started in the green room. Your author versus AI challenge reminded me of Paul Bunyan, and when he was trying to beat out the chainsaw. And we were looking that up. Do you remember that story, Jonathan, growing up? Like the Paul Bunyan cartoon where he...
I remember Paul Bunyan, but I didn't remember that.
Yeah, there's a cartoon that went around in probably the late 70s, early 80s, I guess. Probably late 70s, where Paul Bunyan battled the chainsaw. It was like a competition between Paul Bunyan chopping with his axe and Blue, his ox, going up against this new modern marvel called the chainsaw. And he won for a while, but then he eventually lost. And it's kind of, you can't do that these days. You have to have a happy ending. But back then, as Gen X kids, they didn't care if they depressed us or not. So
yeah, exactly.
Like, sorry, Paul loses.
Yep.
Do you think, Allison, like that happens eventually? Do you think AI gets good enough? And if so, does it matter? Does it not matter?
I think part of the creative arts, and this doesn't hold true, I guess, for everything, but part of the creative arts is people want to follow people. Look at the phenomenon of music and how people get like hero worship of bands and singers. Yep. Can AI reproduce that? Maybe, maybe it can do just as good songs, just as good lyrics, just as catchy tunes. But at the same time, it's not a person. And people really like to glom on, especially for storytelling, for music, for sometimes for film and actors. They want someone to follow. And that is part of the appeal, I think. So while there might be, again, the pulp fiction, there might be the pulp novels that are created by AI, I think a lot of consumption will still be people following people. I like is that Max Headroom?
Wow. There's a blast talking about
Blast
80s.
From the past, yeah.
Blast from the past.
Max Headroom was the original AI DJ. I mean,
exactly, right?
Yeah. So,
but yes, I mean, and there's a pushback now happening. And I know that AI is a great tool and it will infiltrate all our lives and hopefully make life better for all of us in a lot of ways. But at the same time, there's a pushback in publishing against AI. So a lot of
Yeah.
small publishers specifically say in their submission guidelines, no AI. We want human generated stories and human generated art. And it's starting to filter up to the bigger publishers. There was recently an open letter by a number of big name authors to the big five saying, hey, let's cut out AI. Let's make sure that it's people telling stories. So who knows where that will go, but I for one signed it.
Oh, sure.
Oh yeah.
And I wonder though, like with any technology, is that like a fear reaction, or is that radio saying, hey, don't go into video like TV, like that's, you lose, people aren't going to be able to use their imagination. Their imagination is going to stop working, because I'm sure we had the same thing from books to radio, from radio to TV, all that kind of stuff. But I mean, I hear what you're saying, and also wonder who would have ever thought that we would prefer texting over talking on the phone. But now you can't get people to talk on the phone.
Yeah.
And you'll text. And that seems less personal, but it's more preferred. And a lot of people now would rather, talk to not everybody, but a lot of people would rather talk to a chat bot on a website than to call customer service.
Well, that's different. To me, that's different. That's a completely different experience because you're interacting with something. Whereas I think I heard somebody explain it to me. I kind of like this explanation that even like with AI art, one of the reasons we appreciate art is that somebody did that. Somebody actually took the time and had the talent to be able to do that. I mean, that's part of the appreciation of looking at a painting or a work of art or a sculpture or something like that. Whereas with AI, if you know that it's computer generated, I don't think that there's as much interest or there's as much appreciation. I think that's part of it. And it may apply to writing as well, where, we like good stories. And honestly, I want to read, especially with fiction, I want to read fiction from somebody that's writing from their own experience, or, telling a good story. I just don't think that I want to read something that's computer generated. Now, maybe that may change, in another 10 years, it may be so good that it's hard to tell. But at this point in time, I have no appreciation for AI generated art. So,
well, here's a good comparison. So your podcast is called Persuasion by the Pint. Except specifically, you noted you don't really like the mass-produced beers, like maybe Budweiser's not on your list of beers to bring onto your show.
There's never been a Budweiser on this show.
And it's cheaper and it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Right.
But you'd still rather get the small brew. You'd still rather get the personalized, like you can look, the craft beer. You'd still rather have that.
Right.
So I think it's the same thing. It's the same thing for writing. You'd rather have that personalized story, even if it might be slightly more expensive because it's not free. It's not mass produced. And it's personal and it has much more flavor, and it's something that you like. So I think people, it's for entertainment. I think people will see it the same way. It's for entertainment. It's not something needed. So they will search out what is entertaining for them.
Yeah.
I guess time will tell.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I could make an argument on art, especially like, to me, I don't care who made the art. I care how it makes me feel when I look at it.
See, I think people are different because I have an appreciation for art, for somebody that, going back to Bob Ross, I guess, when I was a kid watching him do those paintings, man, I mean, it's like, I was just amazed at his ability, those little happy little trees getting made.
The happy trees, happy mountains.
I don't know. So I think people are different, and they look at art differently.
And that's what's going to make. They'll probably both be successful. Ebooks didn't get rid of print books, and I think there's more print books now than ever. I know the younger generations, actually, a lot of them are preferring print and going back to notebooks and things like that because they were raised with digital, and now they're wanting don't know if that's true for your kids, Allison, or not, but are you seeing that with them? They
definitely.
like paper better?
Yeah.
They do. They have bookshelf after bookshelf. They take after me.
Oh yeah.
And I don't think that's just because they grew up in a house with a writer. I think it is like they've been exposed to digital from birth on, and you want something a little more tangible.
Exactly.
I've probably got 500 books on my Kindle, but I will still buy the same book that's on the Kindle. I will still buy it.
Yeah, I can't remember when I read a book on a Kindle, especially nonfiction that I might want to remember stuff. I cannot remember the stuff in it the way I can with a paperback. And there's studies that prove that, that you retain more from a physical book than you do a digital book.
Well, it's tactile learning. You learn better if it's physical. Yeah.
And there's there's something about the fact that you can see the boundaries of the page. I don't know why it's different in physical, but
it's the smell too.
Of the pages,
the smell of the
texture
book,
of the pages,
smell of that paper, man. That smell of that freshly printed ink on the paper.
Oh, I had a 7th grade English teacher. I remember this. Every time she would open a book, she would sniff the ink. I was like, okay,
absolutely. And if you're going to an antique bookstore, you're sniffing the dust, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
oh yeah, it smells so good when you walk through those doors. You're like,
oh yes,
that Barnes and Noble does not smell the same as a good old fashioned bookstore. That's for sure.
No, it doesn't.
Well, Allison, we're getting near our time. This has been really fun conversation.
I had one final question.
Okay.
Sure.
Regarding story writing. So, and I would love your opinion on this, because I was telling my friend that recently published his book. I said, what would be great is if you could churn out a series of these with the same character, because I think that people really, if they like your fiction, they start to follow the character, and that's really how you gather an audience, is behind a character. When you do one after another, if you create a series. So love to get your opinion on that.
Yeah, series can be great for readers. I always like to leave my stories, my books, a little bit open-ended at the end, because if someone likes it and enough people like it, then I will write another one in the same story with the same character. So series can sell really well. So if your friend did that with his series, maybe there will be a second book coming up shortly. You never know.
So you don't want to end it like All Quiet on the Western Front or Romeo and Juliet, where everybody's dead.
I have done that. I must admit, there are times when I'm like, nope, this character's dead. The end. I don't want to revisit this, especially the books that are a lot of work to research. I'm like, no, it's done. I don't want to delve back in there. But mostly I like to leave a little bit for the reader to think about at the end. Like, what if the story continues?
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could always just, bring them back in a sci-fi novel. If you ever get the urge, you could bring that person back, that character back.
Create that open loop. People
exactly.
Time travel.
The alternate timeline.
Yeah, there's always a way to bring them back. So,
well,
Allison, where can people find out more about you? I put both your sites in the comments, but where would you direct people for our audio listeners?
Yeah, definitely. The best place, because it links to everything else, my website, AlisonMcBain.com, which is Allison with one L. And that attaches to my Author versus AI project, all those writing tip videos, and all my socials. So you can follow me anywhere. And I think that even has my email. So if you want to drop a line, if you have a question that wasn't answered here, please feel free to reach out.
All right. Very good. I'm going to definitely check out some of the writing tips. Like I said, I'm working on 2 books right now, one nonfiction and then one kind of a series that's going to be fictional satire, I guess would be the genre.
Nice.
So
very cool.
That should be fun. I've never done that before, so it's going to be interesting.
Awesome.
All right. Anything else?
Thank you so much Thanks so much for having me on. It was a lot of fun. Enjoyed the whiskey.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing a toast.
Finish that up.
Yeah.
So if you'll hang out now in the green room just a second, Allison, Jonathan, I'll wrap up and we'll do a little after show chat just real quick.
Awesome. Sounds great. Thanks, guys.
Right.
Yep. Very cool. I love
Amazing. That. 34 books in 34 weeks. I
always get inspired talking to creative authors like Allison. So
yeah, just
makes me want to write.
Seems more fun than us nonfiction boring guys, right? So copy and nonfiction.
Yep.
But yeah, I've never really gone down. I don't even read a lot of it. I need to read more fiction. I have liked Matt Haig. I've been on his books lately.
Yeah.
His stuff's pretty good. The Midnight Library, and now I'm reading Humans, which is one of his early novels from like 10 years ago. So trying to work in a little more fiction for sure.
Stephen King. I love some of I don't like any of the new Stephen King, except he did one called The Outsider a few years ago, which is really good. But like most of his old stuff is really good. I think is super good. I used to love reading Stephen King and then Tom Clancy, some of his early stuff. Tom Clancy was so good.
He was hot in the 90s and early 2000s.
Oh yeah.
He owned the shelves and the box office. So
yeah. If you watched any of his movies, the movies that were the Tom Clancy books that were turned into movies, the books are which is normally the case. The books are always so much better.
Yeah.
But Without Remorse was probably my all-time favorite book, which I don't know if they ever turned that into a movie or not, but still one of his all-time greatest books. So
good stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess that's a wrap.
That's a wrap. I'm about to close out and go see Superman.
All right.
I'll give you my impression tonight after the.
Yeah, let me know if it's
it's worth.
It's a DC that's worth watching.
I've heard the reviews are super good, so that's got me a little optimistic, but we'll see.
Yeah.
I'm not getting my hopes up too high, but I'll let you know. All right. Well, to all of our listeners, you can check us out again over at persuasionbythepint.com. You can find us on all of your favorite podcast platforms, wherever you listen to your podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, you name it. We're there, and we will see you next week. Hope you have a great weekend. Sean, it's been fun, man. We'll see you.
See ya.
All right.